Welcome back, my dear followers, or welcome if it's the first time that you are watching my YouTube channel, My Paranormal and Mystery TV. Today my introduction will be very brief because I'm going to make you watch real, uncensored, shocking videos. So these videos worth more than 8,000 words. Paul Walker died on November the 30th, 2013 at only 40 with his friend Roger Rodas in a car crash. When the news of the tragic death of Paul Walker spread, it shocked all the world, but immediately there was something suspicious, and then years after years have become evidences. There are two concrete theories. If Paul Walker really died, it was a murder, but if Paul Walker instead faked his death, the thing for sure is that it wasn't a tragic accident 8,000%. I don't waste your time. A minute more. Watch. Warning! Some images could disturb the sensitivity of the viewers. I start.
New details this morning on the deaths of Fast and Furious star Paul Walker and his friend killed in a fiery car accident over the weekend. Investigators working right now to determine the cause of the wreck. ABC's Cecilia Vega has the story.
He is the speed demon who rose to fame in the Fast and Furious blockbusters. And now, this real-life twist that all too closely mirrors the movies he made.
We have confirmed 2DOA.
This morning, new details in the joyride that ended in a fiery crash taking actor Paul Walker's life. The driver, Walker's friend, Roger Rodas, was a pro racer with championship titles to his name.
This is not his first time driving a car like that.
Right. That's why I'm shocked. He's driven cars faster than this.
A Porsche Carrera GT that can hit speeds of up to 240 miles per hour, reportedly being sold for more than $300,000, and so difficult to handle, even professional drivers called it scary. On Saturday, both men attended a toy drive-in car show for Walker's charity, Reach Out Worldwide. Here's Walker with that Porsche in one of the last known videos of the 40-year-old star.
They pulled out of the parking lot slow.
Jim Torp spoke to both men just before they rode off. The crash happened in a business park just a few blocks away, minutes after they left.
What was the last thing you heard Paul say?
Hey, I'll be right back in 5 minutes. That was the last words I heard.
They struck a tree and a pole. Both men pronounced dead on the scene. The mangled car unrecognizable. The pole bent in two. Fast and Furious co-star Tyrese Gibson among the throngs of mourners who visited the scene, leaving in tears.
It's been a while since I've been behind the wheel of one of these.
Walker had been on break from filming Fast and Furious 7. Production is now reportedly delayed.
How was that?
And now let's start from the first shocking video to the hardest shocking videos. The drone, the conspiracy that talk about the drone. wasn't a conspiracy at all. Look at this video of the car crash, and it's uncensored. A drone or an object hit the Porsche in which there were Paul Walker and Roger Rodas. Watch. The video is without audio, but that's not important. Look. You must know that a video camera from another position recorded the accident and what happened later. So, the car hit one light pole and then two trees. But the most shocking discovery is this. Watch.
Across the street from where the crash happened, you don't actually see the crash. You don't see the car, but do you see that? The light post falling and the tree, and then you see this debris go. All right, count 60 seconds from that point, and it's not until there that you see any significant smoke. There's a wisp of smoke there. But, and I'm not sure how this is edited, but the smoke is very light for 60 seconds. What that suggests is that the fire did not become a raging fire for about a minute, which would mean that the two occupants in the vehicle would have had 60 seconds to get out, if they could have. We don't know what happened. Nobody saw what they were trying to do at that time, but it was a full 60 seconds until what you see now, the heavier smoke going. Right. I believe this is edited. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if we saw the red...
It is edited. I'm hearing in my ear from the control room.
Right.
Yes, Alan Duke, it's edited. So you're telling me you saw the raw in 60 seconds, while after this light pole goes down, that's when the smoke begins, correct?
What's more, having been there that evening and seeing the scene and standing actually right at those hedges looking down as the coroner pulled the bodies from the wreckage, I can tell you the significance is the 60 seconds that you don't see smoke. Because what was happening then, that is the horror that Paul Walker and Roger Rodas were suffering. They were, at that time, all right, let's watch it again. The light.
So I was very shocked because the car burst in flames after 1 minute, 60 seconds are 1 minute, and Roger Rodas died instantly, but Paul Walker haven't died instantly. So watch.
Now, about 2 minutes later, that anyone arrived with a fire extinguisher or to try to help them. We've heard of heroic efforts to try to pull the men out, but it was too late. Because their friends were at that charity event at Rotis's car shop about 500 yards away when they heard the crash, they rushed up. It was a couple of or 3 minutes before they got there. By the time they got there, that's what the smoke looked like right there. But it's that lonely 60 seconds of no smoke, no fire in that Porsche Carrera GT when those men were inside that vehicle, obviously unable to get out.
And here, the most shocking videos ever. A guy was walking on the street when he shot this video, and he didn't know that into the car there was Paul Walker. And watch. And here, the shocking image. The car is in flames, but people talk about the ghost of Paul Walker. And the shape of the body looks like the one of Paul Walker. But this photo has been labeled, this video, this image has been labeled like the ghost of Paul Walker. I absolutely don't agree with this version because I'm a paranormal investigator and expert for more than 30 years. And I can tell you that ghosts don't look like that. They are more transparent. So, if there are two options, Paul Walker tried to escape from the car, so he wasn't forced by car bells, or it was a stuntman, because this was the way to fake Paul Walker's death. Not a ghost, not a ghost. And look more, ghosts are not like this. Watch! Paul Walker was outside, almost outside the car. Could he survive the accident? Could he cheat the death? Not a ghost. I really want to be open with you, my dear followers and viewers. There are three hypotheses. One is that Paul Walker succeed in exiting from the car, but the explosion was too much and he didn't succeed in exiting alive. But in this case, it was a murder, and the murder was accomplished. Another hypothesis, Paul Walker faked his death, and this image could have been a stuntman. And otherwise, Paul Walker succeed in exiting. He cheat the death. The car crash was provoked by people who wanted to silence him. He succeed in leaving, and then at that point he changed his identity. No smoke until a minute after the car crash. This is really suspicious. Watch this other video.
In the top corner, you can see smoke. This is from the explosion which killed Hollywood star Paul Walker. Taken from a building down the street, the security camera shows as black smoke starts to rise, and then there's a flash as the car explodes. Soon after, others rush to the scene. Walker was the passenger on a 20-minute drive around Santa Clarita with his friend Roger Rodas.
Immediately it was suspicious.
What happened in those final moments? And how did this tragic accident shape the way the world remembers Paul Walker?
Paul Walker had been fully interested in seas, oceans, marine creatures. Even when he was very young.
It eventually became his main career. By the late 1990s, Walker's roles in films like Pleasantville and Varsity Blues caught the attention of audiences and directors alike. However, it was the 2001 blockbuster, The Fast and the Furious, that catapulted him into global stardom. Playing Brian O'Connor, an undercover cop embedded in the world of illegal street racing, Walker helped launch what would become one of the most successful film franchises in history. Off-camera, his love for cars was every bit as real as what audiences saw on screen. He amassed a renowned collection of rare and high-performance vehicles, ranging from classic American muscle to exotic supercars, and frequently attended races and track events. It was at one of those events that Walker met Roger Rodas, a professional racer and financial advisor. The two shared an intense passion for cars and motorsports, and their friendship quickly evolved into a business partnership.
Outside!
Cars, Walker was deeply committed to philanthropy. In 2010, after personally travelling to help with earthquake relief efforts in Haiti, he founded Reach Out Worldwide, a non-profit disaster response team made up of first responders and medical professionals. Walker didn't just fund the organisation, he worked alongside volunteers delivering aid directly to disaster-stricken regions. Quietly and without fanfare, he helped save lives. However, most importantly, Paul was a devoted father. His daughter, Meadow Rain Walker, was born in 1998. Though she spent her early years living primarily with her mother in Hawaii, Meadow moved in with Paul full-time during her early teens. Friends and family often said fatherhood changed him, slowing down his lifestyle, sharpening his priorities, and giving him a sense of purpose outside fame. In interviews, Walker reportedly described being a dad as his most important role. Soon of November the 30th, 2013, Paul Walker and Roger Rodas were attending a charity event for Reach Out Worldwide in Santa Clarita, California. The event was organised to raise funds for victims of Typhoon Haiyan, which had devastated parts of the Philippines earlier that month. Held at the always evolving performance shop, the event was low-key and family-friendly, drawing car enthusiasts, volunteers and friends from the local community. Walker and Rodas spent the day talking to fans, showcasing vehicles from their private collection, and raising awareness for their cause. Sometime around 3:30 p.m, Roger and Paul decided to take a short drive in a bright red 2005 Porsche Carrera GT, one of the most powerful and notoriously demanding cars ever made. The Carrera GT has a V10 engine capable of producing over 600 horsepower and minimal electronic stability controls. Rodas, an experienced amateur racer, was behind the wheel. Walker rode in the passenger seat. They left the event lot for what witnesses described as a quick ride around the industrial car park where Always Evolving was located. The stretch of road they turned onto, Hercules Street, was a wide, curving 4-lane road with minimal traffic. Within minutes, however, tragedy struck. Camera footage from nearby buildings captured the aftermath, a thick plume of black smoke rising above the crash site. Witnesses rushed to the scene, including friends and employees from the event, but the fire was too intense for anyone to approach the vehicle safely. First responders arrived within minutes and extinguished the flames, but it was too late. Both men were pronounced dead at the scene. The crash site became a scene of grief and disbelief. Initial confusion quickly gave way to shock as word spread that Paul Walker had been killed. Fans, reporters, and mourners began gathering within hours, leaving flowers, notes, and Fast and Furious memorabilia at the site. In the days that followed, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department and the California Highway Patrol launched a detailed investigation into the accident. In the with 2 trees in rapid succession before coming to a stop, broken, burning, and nearly unrecognisable. Crucially, the investigation found no evidence of mechanical failure, road debris, or drag racing. Toxicology reports confirmed that neither Walker nor Rodas had drugs or alcohol in their system at the time. The car's tyres, however, were 9 years old, well beyond the manufacturer's safety recommendations. Combined with the high speed and cold road conditions that day, this made the Porsche particularly unstable. The official cause was listed as unsafe speed for the roadway conditions, but it was
immediately a question. How could it be possible that 2 expert pilots, they were very skilled pilots, both Paul Walker and Roger Rodas. Roger Rodas drove a Porsche with such fame with 9 years tires. Look, I'm not an expert in cars, but even all the drivers were not experts. It's impossible to drive a Porsche with 9 years tires.
From a passerby that showed movement inside the car after the crash, a claim that, if true, suggests that Paul may have regained consciousness and tried to escape. The Los Angeles County Coroner's report revealed further disturbing details. Roger Rodas died on impact due to multiple traumatic injuries, but he sustained no smoke inhalation. Paul Walker, however, suffered a combination of traumatic and thermal injuries. Most chilling was the confirmation that his trachea contained soot, indicated that he was still breathing when the fire started. Firefighters arrived within minutes, but the flames had already engulfed the car, fed by its carbon fiber body and high-octane fuel.
This is the last photo of Paul Walker alive.
He died on impact or within seconds of the crash. The Porsche Carrera GT, although road legal, had a reputation in the world as being a handful to drive.
In the months following the crash,
Paul Walker's daughter, Meadow Rain Walker, only 15 at the time, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Porsche, alleging that the Carrera GT was inherently dangerous and lacked essential safety features. The lawsuit claimed that the car's lack of electronic stability control and faulty seatbelt design contributed directly to Paul's death, suggesting he had been trapped in his seat after impact. Porsche responded by denying any responsibility, asserting that the vehicle had been misused by the driver and was driven at unsafe speeds. However, in 2017, Meadow reached a confidential settlement with Porsche. It was
And now I want to make you discover all the truth, every detail, so that you can make an opinion of your own.
In a fiery car accident over the weekend.
On November 30th, 2013, the world was shocked by the sudden and tragic loss of beloved actor Paul Walker. The Fast and Furious star's life was abruptly ended by a car accident that sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry and left fans heartbroken. The actor was mourned by thousands of fans from around the world who paid their respects to him. At the site of the tragic car accident that took the lives of Paul Walker and his friend Roger Rodas, family, friends, and supporters gathered to honor their memories. But what exactly happened that day?
Climbed into a red Porsche Carrera GT on November 30th, 2013. He told a friend he would be back in 5 minutes. He never came back. For years, the official story blamed speed and nothing else. But witnesses who were there that day remember details that never made it into the final report. A car jiggling in its lane, 9-year-old tires on a 600 horsepower machine, internal Porsche emails joking about crash rates, and a coroner's finding that Walker was still breathing after impact. The people who saw it happen are finally talking. What they describe changes everything you thought you knew.
An actor. He was 7 films deep into the Fast and Furious franchise, a global name, and, less known to casual fans, a man deeply obsessed with something most people never expected: humanitarian relief work. In 2010, Walker had co-founded an organization called Reach Out Worldwide, or ROWW. It wasn't a vanity project. He personally trained in emergency response. He deployed to disaster zones. When the earthquake hit Haiti, he was reportedly on the ground within days, not as a celebrity photo op, but working alongside first responders. So when Typhoon Haiyan devastated the Philippines in November 2013, killing over 6,000 people, Walker didn't just write a check, he mobilized his charity. And that mobilization is exactly what brought him to Santa Clarita on his final weekend alive. Here's where it gets interesting, because the events of his last 48 hours weren't chaotic or reckless. They were, almost eerily, ordinary. Saturday, November 30th. Paul Walker attends a Reach Out Worldwide charity event, raising funds and supplies for typhoon victims. He's seen smiling, engaged, present. Friends who spoke afterward described him as being in good spirits.
At the charity event, he met Roger Rodas.
Rodas wasn't just a friend. He was a former race car driver, financial advisor, and, critically, Walker's business partner in a car customization company called Always Evolving. And this is where the timeline takes a turn most people don't expect. Roger Rodas had recently acquired a 2005 Porsche Carrera GT, a car that, even by supercar standards, had a reputation.
Roger Rodas was driving that afternoon.
The Porsche eastbound on Hercules Street, a wide 5-lane road in the business park. A little further down, the road narrows and bends into a curve where the speed limit drops to about 15 meters. What happened next never got a clean, simple explanation, even after the investigation. Somewhere on that stretch, Rodas accelerated to between 80 and 93 km, which was about double the posted 45 limit for that area. The LA County Coroner's report put it even higher, saying approximately 100 plus km/h. A witness told investigators she saw the Porsche jiggling back and forth in its lane like the driver was jiggling the steering right before the crash, as if the car was already starting to get loose. After that, it all happened fast. The vehicle spun and partially rotated as it veered in a southeasterly direction. The driver's side slammed into a tree, and a concrete light pole. Security camera footage later obtained by CNN showed the light pole and the tree falling at the moment of impact. About 60 seconds after the crash, faint black smoke began to rise. Within 2 minutes, the smoke turned into a thick, dark plume.
The force of the collision caused the vehicle to spin again, and this time, the passenger side struck the tree. CCTV footage of the crash site revealed that nearly a minute after the crash, the car burst into flames. The impact of the collision was so strong that it nearly split the Porsche in two, and the sound of the crash was heard by people at the charity event, 500 yards away. At 3:31 p.m., 911 was called and firefighters from the Los Angeles County Fire Department arrived on the scene. The LA County Sheriff's Department acted promptly in response to the deadly incident and later declared both passengers deceased. Reports from the LA County coroner indicated that Paul Walker passed away due to a combination of thermal exposure and traumatic impact injuries. It was impossible to identify his body through visual means because of the severity of the burns he had sustained, and none of his organs were suitable for donation. The crash resulted in multiple fractures throughout his body, including his jaw, collarbone, and left arm.
And here there is a controversy because Roger Rodas was recognized by the dental cast. In the case of Paul Walker, was completely burnt, and there wasn't the possibility to do the DNA test to realize who really was. So there is something mysterious because Roger Rodas died instantly in the car crash, but he was identified not by DNA because he was burnt, but from the dental cast. In the case of Paul Walker, there are people who stated that there was the possibility to recognize Paul Walker analyzing the dental cast, but others say that it was impossible to identify Paul Walker because it was completely burnt. But they say if Roger Rodas was identified, okay, the other passenger was Paul Walker. But it, of course, arose the rumors of Paul Walker faking his death.
Traumatic injuries to the neck, head, and chest, and he passed away soon after the crash. The results of the investigation revealed that there were no traces of drugs or alcohol in the body of either individual.
Of course, now the so-called conspiracy theories, and later I will delve deep into some of them, the more possible. I go on.
And was killed to silence him. That story did not survive basic checking. Another claim said the car was hit by a drone strike or military weapon, and even InfoWars dismissed that one, with an editor calling it baseless and saying it discredits real evidence of political assassinations. Then there was the faked death idea, which leaned on a blurry image that actually came from Walker's 2005 film Into the Blue, along with TMZ footage from September 2013. Snopes broke that theory apart by showing what it would require, not just Walker, but his family, friends, the Fast and Furious cast, firefighters, the Los Angeles Department of Public Health, and the coroner's office all acting together as part of one huge lie. Other versions followed the same pattern: an Illuminati ritual angle, a car hacking angle, even talk of a secret documentary about trafficking.
Here you see a little Paul Walker, handsome since he was a baby.
Walker was born on September 12, 1973, in Glendale, California. He was the oldest of 5 children, growing up in the small town of Sunland. Paul's parents jump-started his acting career by getting him a role in a Pampers commercial when he was just 2 years old, and Paul would go on to act throughout his entire childhood, with small television roles until he was cast in his first movie, Monster in the Closet, at the age of 10. When young Paul wasn't acting, he discovered a passion for surfing. He realized that the money he made from acting could help him buy surfboards and cover travel expenses for surfing trips. And this advantage during auditions, and he always appeared extremely relaxed, almost as if he wasn't concerned about getting the part. He probably would have preferred to be surfing at those moments, but this laid-back attitude actually impressed the casting directors. Throughout the 90s, Paul's acting career picked up significantly. He appeared in several TV shows such as Charles in Charge, Who's the Boss, and The Young and the Restless, and his career truly took off in the late 90s with notable roles in the 1999 films She's All That and Varsity Blues. Then in 2000, the call came. Paul was cast in the most important movie of his career so far. No, not that one. Yet. He was cast in The Skulls, which was directed by a guy named Rob Cohen, and he and Paul formed a strong connection on set. Rob loved Paul's attitude and work ethic and filled him in on his next project. Rob said, "Hey, Paul, I think I got a movie for you that you might really dig." And Paul was like, "Oh yeah, what's it about?" Rob explained, "Fast cars, hot chicks, and you get a gun and you're an undercover cop." And Paul was instantly sold, responding, "Dude, I'm in." And the funny part, Paul was still Paul. Paul preferred a quieter life away from the spotlight. However, Vin Diesel mentioned in an interview with Men's Health that while some actors may not like to be called by the roles they play, Paul Walker absolutely loved it, Vin recalled. One time, we were going to some birthday party or something, and one of the guys called him Brian. And when we left and we were in the car, he said, "That's my favorite thing. It's my favorite thing when people call me Brian." Vince said that moment always stuck with him because it showed how much pride Paul took in Brian.
Paul Walker with his daughter, Maid of Rain Walker.
30th, 2013, Paul Walker had planned to spend the day at home with his family. He was looking forward to buying a Christmas tree and decorating it that evening with his mother Cheryl and his 15-year-old daughter Meadow. Meadow had recently moved to Los Angeles to live with Paul after being raised in Hawaii by her mother, and Paul was just getting used to his new role as a full-time dad. Cheryl recalled that Paul was especially cheerful that Saturday morning. "We were having this good conversation and he'd forgotten about an event he had," she said. "He got a text and said, 'Oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be somewhere.'" And that was when Paul reportedly rushed out of the door to a charity event which was organized to help victims of Typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines. Known for being a philanthropist, Paul had founded the exclusively self-funded disaster relief charity Reach Out Worldwide, after being inspired by the needs following the 2010 earthquake in Haiti. At around 3:25 p.m., Paul and his friend Roger Rodas left the charity event and approached a red 2005 Porsche Carrera GT. Excited, Paul suggested, "Hey, let's go for a drive." Roger agreed and took the driver's seat, with Paul hopping into the passenger side. The Porsche Carrera GT was known for its powerful engine and tricky handling, and they didn't drive far from the shop, just a few hundred yards, when the car proved too much.
The car hit a light pole and 2 trees.
Those attending the charity event, including Roger's 8-year-old son, immediately came running. The little boy jumped over a fence and ran to the wreck, trying to get his father out. Paul Walker's friend Antonio Holmes described it as one of the most horrific crash scenes in Hollywood history.
I just can't believe that Paul died in a so horrific way. And if he really died, it was a murder. I'm sure that if he died, the car had been rigged.
Claims they had no choice but to stand back and watch Paul Walker's death unfold before their eyes. There was nothing they could do. Paul died at the age of 40. The first firefighters arrived less than 3 minutes after a 911 call alerted them to the crash. As soon as they saw the devastating scene, they quickly realized there were no survivors. The recordings from their call to the dispatch center include one of the first updates from the scene.
We have confirmed 2 DOA.
Reporting there were 2 fatalities and labeling the victims DOA, meaning dead on arrival. The responder on the scene also informed dispatch that it was a Code N incident, indicating that it was a significant event that needed to be handled carefully due to its potential news impact. The official report stated, "For an unknown reason, the driver lost control of the vehicle and the vehicle partially spun around and began to travel in a southeasterly direction. The vehicle then struck a sidewalk and the driver's side struck a tree and then a light post. The force of these collisions caused the vehicle to spin 180 degrees and it continued to travel in an easterly direction. The passenger side of the vehicle then struck a tree and it then burst into flames." In 2015, Paul Walker's heartbroken daughter Meadow filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Porsche, claiming that flaws in the car's design led to her father's death. She argued that her father was alive for 1 minute and 20 seconds after the crash, but was unable to escape because of his seatbelt.
And this is not true, because as I made you watch before, this wasn't the ghost of Paul Walker, but Paul Walker. So it means that the seat belts, he succeeds in liberating himself from seat belts. And also the roof of the car was convertible. In fact, he was exiting from the car. And another hypothesis, I really pray that he succeed in exiting.
Lawsuit claimed that the fire didn't start until a minute after the crash, suggesting Paul had a chance to escape. However,
when Paul Walker
passed away, most of the filming for Furious 7 had already been completed, but his untimely death left many wondering how the movie would continue without him. In the final version released in cinemas in April 2015, they used repurposed archived footage from previous outtakes, while his brothers Cody and Caleb also helped by acting in some scenes, which were later replaced with CGI to feature Paul's face. The film's ending was subtly changed following the tragedy, with the last scenes showing Paul's character Brian and Dominic Toretto racing one last time before Brian drives off. Furious 7 shattered box office records upon its release, quickly reaching the $1 billion mark in just 17 days, and ultimately earning over $1.5 billion worldwide.
Did Paul Walker fake his death? It's not impossible. You won't believe your eyes. Watch.
Have taken time to dissect the details of Walker's untimely death, and their conclusion has left many in hysterics. Theorists are claiming that the Fast and Furious actor has faked his own death. According to Christian Post, fringe conspiracy websites like www.nodisinfo.com have surfaced with publications arguing the theory that Walker and his friend Roger Roders did not die in the fiery car crash that took place in Santa Clarita, California on November 30th. Conspiracy theorists are also insinuating that the Fast and Furious production team conspired with Universal Studios to carry out the near impossible task. Some of the sites have even analyzed several images that were taken before, during, and after the fatal crash. The images, which are being depicted.
Watch these license plates. This is not a conspiracy. It's a fact. Watch the license wait and watch this other one. I go on.
As photo evidence have been used to explain some of the details which theorists have classified as unusual and unconventional, given the nature of Walker's reported death. The images in question capture certain details that most viewers and readers probably wouldn't notice at first glimpse. None of the sight.
There are really some strange facts that happened. Watch with your eyes.
Theory that's coming on the internet, a lot of people are talking about right now. Around the time Paul Walker passed away, there was this director that came onto the scene. He's very similar to Paul Walker. Just looking at the pictures, look at the eyes, look at the face. Yeah. Literally looks like he's related. Yeah, they look like brothers. The theory is like he faked his death.
When there had been the car crash in which Paul Walker and Roger Rodas died, the day after the tragedy or later arrived this TV hoster that for some people was Paul Walker in disguise. Do you remember that is not a conspiracy? It's another fact. When Michael Jackson died, when the fake Dave was a close friend of Michael Jackson, went to shove, it was pretty evident that he wasn't the real Dave, but Michael Jackson in disguise. All the fans recognized him. So, about Michael Jackson, I got some news, and I'm pretty sure that he is still alive. I'm not instead so sure about Paul Walker, but look, because nobody knows the name of this TV presenter. And look at the nose, the eyebrows. There are theories that it could be Paul Walker in disguise, and I think that if he's not Paul Walker in disguise, he has a secret twin. But if Paul Walker faked his death, which would it be? The reason? Watch this. The ocean.
Paul Walker's life very early, and it almost never left him. He loved surfing, enjoyed exploring the sea, and was especially fascinated by sharks and marine creatures. In many interviews, Paul once said that if he had not become an actor, he probably would have pursued marine biology instead of cinema. The years of fame that came later did not change that too much. When he was not filming, Paul often disappeared into diving trips, journeys out on the ocean, or nature exploration programs. Those who had gone famous he became, another contradiction in Paul Walker's career also gradually became clearer. Paul's appearance was almost too perfect for studios at that time. Blonde hair, blue eyes, an athletic body, and a kind of energy that was very easy to sell tickets with among young audiences. Meanwhile, Paul was never truly comfortable with that image. In real life, he was still passionate about cars, loved outdoor activities, and often spent more time at the beach or on racetracks than at Hollywood parties. In 2000, Paul appeared in The Skulls, a thriller with a mysterious tone centered on a secret society in a wealthy Ivy League-style college environment. This was a project that showed Hollywood was beginning to try placing Paul more clearly, plus T, in the position of a commercial leading man. The film performed fairly well at the box office and continued to keep Paul Walker.
I can tell you that the first time I saw Paul Walker in my life was watching the movie The Skulls. And I really tell you what I thought. There was also Joshua Jackson, who is a very great actor, but when I saw Paul Walker on the screen, I thought, who is that masterpiece of man? It can't be human. He wasn't handsome. He was too much handsome, really too much gorgeous. I was really shocked in positive because I think that Paul Walker has been and is still the most handsome, one of the most handsome men and actors ever. I go on.
Walker's name among the rising young actors of the early 2000s. However, The Skulls also made Paul's feeling of being boxed in clearer than before. Although his career was rising, the roles he received still revolved around the same image: a handsome, healthy, outstanding young man who carried the energy of an ideal American youth. And it was precisely during that seemingly favorable period that a film about streetcars began to appear, preparing to change his entire life. Just a few years later, in 2001, The Fast and the Furious appeared, at a time when modified car culture and street racing were spreading very quickly across the United States. Nighttime parking lots, small garages, the growl of Japanese engines along California freeways, and the world of Honda Civics, Supras, and Skylines began to move out of the underground community and straight into mainstream Hollywood. At first, few people in the film industry thought the movie would become anything too big. It looked more like a speed-driven action film for young people than a franchise capable of changing the careers of many people inside it. From the very first days of preparing for the role of Brian O'Connor, Paul Walker was different from the rest of the cast. While many actors were still learning how to drive a manual transmission or trying to remember the names of Japanese car models, Paul almost stepped straight into that world as if he had already lived in it before. He talked about turbos, brake systems, tuning, and Japanese import cars with very real excitement. The filmmakers later recalled that Paul always wanted to know what kind of turbocharger a car used, how much.
And he became a great friend of Vin Diesel.
He was only in his 20s at the time, but his name seemed to appear everywhere within just a few months. Throughout the filming period, Paul and Vin Diesel gradually became close in real life in a very natural way. The two were almost completely opposite in energy, yet they blended together very powerfully whenever they shared the frame. That very difference created the special chemistry between Dominic Toretto and Brian O'Connor on screen. But when the cameras stopped rolling, they still continued to spend time together outside the set, eat together, and gradually understand that this film pulling both of them into another life.
However, even if he was considered the most prominent young male actors in Hollywood at that time,
when filming wrapped, Paul often disappeared almost immediately. While many young actors of the same era appeared constantly at parties and entertainment industry events, he would drive out of Los Angeles, head down to the ocean, or go somewhere for days at a time. People who knew Paul during that period often remembered that he rarely stayed still in the city for too long. He liked garages, racetracks, and outdoor trips more than crowded parties. There were times when Paul almost completely disappeared, while his name was appearing everywhere in the media.
In 2006,
Running Scared appeared as the darkest turn in Paul Walker's entire career. The film was almost nothing like any image Hollywood had built around him before. There was no longer the clean California leading man or the speed hero in the style of Fast and Furious. Paul stepped into a world full of psychological violence, panic, and emotional chaos that lasted almost throughout the entire film. His face at that time always carried a feeling of exhaustion, tension, and being pushed into dark corners with no way back. Running Scared was not a major box office success when it was released, but many years later, it was often mentioned as Paul Walker's most underrated performance. People who had once seen him only as a handsome face began to see a different energy in that role. Rougher, darker, and far more unstable. Paul also seemed to especially like this film. It gave him the opportunity to stand far away from the golden boy image that Hollywood had kept around him throughout the early years of his career. That same year, 8 Below pulled Paul in a completely different direction. The survival film, set in the snowy landscape of Antarctica, had a slower rhythm and much softer emotion than Running Scared. Paul appeared amid white snow, sled dogs, and the loneliness of lands almost cut off from the world. The film earned more than $120 million worldwide and was strongly embraced by family audiences. While his career continued to move forward, Paul Walker appeared less and less in Hollywood life. There were periods when he almost disappeared completely between projects. Paul went to the Amazon, joined shark diving trips, spent weeks out at sea, or wandered through journeys that had almost nothing to do with the entertainment industry. In many interviews, he spoke very frankly about how he felt toward Hollywood. At one point, Paul simply smiled and said a short sentence: "Hollywood is garbage."
Paul donated
to conservation organizations and almost never spoke about it publicly. He helped many charitable projects without turning them into personal image campaigns. As time went on, conversations around Paul Walker revolved less and less around fame than before. He still acted, was still famous, and still appeared on posters for major studios. But off-screen, Paul began talking more about time. In a later conversation, he said only a short sentence: "I have money, but I don't have time." In 2009, Paul Walker returned to stand beside Vin Diesel in Fast and Furious. Also changed when Meadow moved back to California to live with her father. People close to him during that time often remembered that Paul began staying home more than before. Between Fast and Furious shoot schedules and global promotional tours, he still tried to return to Santa Barbara as soon as possible. At times, Paul would talk for hours about a future outside cinema, about the ocean, about land, and about the feeling of wanting to stop in one fixed place instead of continuing to live between airports and hotels. Also during this period, Reach Out Worldwide began becoming a very large part of Paul Walker's life. After the 2010 Haiti earthquake, he went directly to the scene with relief teams, instead of only donating from afar. People who worked with the organization often remembered seeing Paul carrying supplies, standing among the rubble, or sleeping right in the relief area like the other volunteers.
And listen well, Paul Walker began repeating
the same sentence to his family and close friends. This one is the last one.
About Fast and Furious, Paul Walker started to say to other friends, people with whom he worked, this one is the last one. But if Paul Walker really died, who wanted Paul Walker dead? Who wanted to murder Paul Walker? Watch.
Actor Paul Walker died from a combination of traumatic injuries and burns. That's the finding of the LA coroner.
Prior to his death, Paul Walker made his mark on television as an actor and in the hearts of many for his philanthropic gestures. He contributed so much to humanity through his charities, helping even victims of disasters get back on their feet. This act, combined with his strong on-screen persona, and solidified his place in history. However, on November 30th, 2013, tragedy struck, creating one of the saddest moments for everyone close to the actor. Following the tragic accident, new insights have continued to emerge, questioning established facts about the event.
In 2010,
a non-profit organization that specialized in relief efforts in areas affected by natural disasters. He founded the organization known as Reach Out Worldwide to cater to victims of the earthquake that hit Haiti in 2010. With ROW, Walker organized a network of first responders and experts who would travel into disaster areas, delivering vital supplies and other aids. It was the manifestation of his hands-on philosophy of helping others, and also reflected deep compassion for those in need. Walker was very active with what ROW did, actually participating in many of the relief missions himself. He was very devoted to the charity and its cause, and spent much time and energy in growing the charity. Beyond ROW, Walker was an active supporter of lots of other charities and causes, frequently lending his celebrity status to bring awareness and funds to whatever cause he found worthy of his attention.
Immediately,
the news of his death spread like fire. Speculation started to emerge about why a man of his stature would be taken away by death in such a bizarre manner. From theories that stated he might have faked his own death, others extended to insinuate that high-status individuals might have engineered his death. Of those theories, one of the most popularly known postulated that Walker, not wanting or needing the pressures of such a life of fame, had actually staged his own death to live life more quietly out of the spotlight. In this version, the accident was an on-stage disappearing act for Walker to quietly exit without raising any suspicions. Proponents of that theory pointed to various sightings of Walker, often unsubstantiated or vague, in different locations around the world. They argued that Walker, the eternal adventurer and loner, could have asked for nothing more than to be relieved from the troublesome scrutiny of Hollywood and to live his life anonymously. Many proponents of this theory cited the themes of outrunning the law and changing identities in the Fast and Furious franchise as an idea that Walker could have picked up from his on-screen character, Brian O'Connor. However, these were mere speculations with absolutely no credible evidence. The family members, friends, and co-stars of Walker mourned his loss openly and spoke about the emotional devastation his death had caused. There is also a theory that some powerful figures might have orchestrated his death. The original version of this conspiracy theory posited that Walker was murdered by powerful figures or organizations because he had come across some secret they did not want to be revealed. In most variants, it's implied that Walker was on the verge of exposing some shameful secrets about people or groups in high positions of power. Several theories cited Walker's humanitarian efforts and how, by being mixed with an organization such as ROW, he could have discovered something illicit or illegal. This theory postulates that because he knew too much, some vested interests made sure he was silenced. Various versions of this theory advanced that he had uncovered either a drug trafficking or some other government corruption scandal. These claims were furthered by the fact that Walker had been attending a charity event for Typhoon Haiyan victims on the day of his death, which conspiracy theorists suggested could have been a cover for a more covert mission. Other theories linked his death to his knowledge of financial crimes, which might have had something to do with the diversion of funds meant for charity, although none of those ideas was substantiated with evidence. Conspiracy theories were even thrown in stating that Walker's car had been tampered with or sabotaged to result in the accident. This set believes that the Porsche Carrera GT had been rigged to fail or lose control by some person who had access to it. Such theories invoke the high performance of the vehicle and its known instability, to claim that some subtle change might have made an accident inevitable. These speculations were fed by the fact that both men were skilled drivers.
I really pray that Paul Walker is still alive, free from Hollywood, from all movies, red carpets, and maybe now swimming in some oceans with all the marine creatures he loved. Thanks for watching. See you soon at the next mystery. Stay tuned.